Right, hopefully this will be the last video I actually have to talk about mermaids, but knowing me, it won't be. I've now made 2 videos specifically on this charity, and quite frankly I'm fed up with reading about them. I don't know how they get away with what they do, but to catch you all up, if you don't want to watch the last 2 videos which I'll link in the description, I'll just give you a rundown of what mermaids do. They are a trans rights charity who is run by bankers and other people not in the medical profession. Susie Green, their CEO, sent her daughter over to Thailand when she was 16 illegally to have a sex change operation to make her more of a woman. Susie Green also uses the police as her personal bodyguard whenever someone calls her son, who is now a daughter, a man or misgenders her. People have literally been called up. A journalist, in fact, was called up by the police to investigate as to why she misgendered Susie Green's daughter, which is ridiculous. The organisation also sent people to illegally run trans clinics and also lobby inside legally run trans clinics, which is what this video is all about. But if you want to go into detail into all that, simply look at my last 2 videos about mermaids. But now getting into this one, calls to end transgender experiment on children. Staff quit NHS clinic over ethics and safety fears. In the last video I did go through the Tavistock Centre, where the staff there didn't appreciate the treatment of the children there and what they were forced to do to the children, i.e. treat them all like they had gender dysphoria and encourage them to go on hormone blockers, which if put on them too long, in Susie Green's case, made her daughter have a penis that wasn't actually big enough to operate on to turn her into a woman. Part of the reason in the last video I went through for the people leaving was because we don't understand the whole science behind it, but I'm sure this article will go through it also, so I'll get into it. The only NHS gender clinic for children is risking a live experiment by sending hundreds of life-changing medical interventions without sufficient evidence of its long-term effects, experts have warned. The Times have spoken to 5 clinicians who resigned from the service because of concerns over the treatment of vulnerable children who came to the clinic presenting as transgender. They believe that some gay children struggling with their sexuality are being wrongly diagnosed as transgender by the Gender Identity Development Service, the GID's clinic. All 5 former staff were responsible for deciding which trans-identifying youngsters should be given hormone blockers to halt their sexual development. The vast majority of those who begin blockers go on to irreversible cross-sex hormones once they reach 16. I am of the opinion that you should never, ever give anyone under the age of 18 anything that will detrimentally affect their lives, i.e. these hormone blockers have to have a net positive benefit for this to even be considered. Once they go over 18, they can do what they want with their bodies. I do not care. But back onto the point, this was the only clinic for trans children, and the lobbyists have been pushing so much their ideological agenda on the place that it got 5 clinicians who decide whether these kids should actually go on hormone blockers to just resign because of the ethics behind it. That's how bad lobbyists for trans rights are being at the moment, and it is pretty bad, because I'm pretty sure these kids actually need help, whether they're gay or they are actually transgender. They really need the proper help, and your ideological bullshit is making medical professionals literally leave, so the people you need to help these kids you want to protect, by your actions, is make them not be able to do the job. Do you not think maybe you should stop trying to pressurise these groups into doing your ideological bullshit? No, I didn't think so. So please shut down your charity. The NHS specialists warned that vulnerable children and teenagers had been sent down the path towards transition before experts had time to assess the causes of their gender confusion. An Oxford professor has also raised concerns about safety of drug therapies used by the clinic, saying their treatments were supported by low-quality evidence or in many cases no evidence at all. An Oxford professor is saying that their use of treatment does not have any evidence supporting it. If there's no scientific evidence backing this, the only reason they are doing these treatments is because of the lobbyist groups. Because I don't see any other reason that they'd be doing this. But that's all I'll say. The number of young people referred to the clinic in North London has soared. In 2010 there were 94 referrals. By last year there were 2,519. The youngest was aged 3. The 5 clinicians are among at least 18 clinical staff who have resigned over the past 3 years. Oh my god. Do we really think it's healthy that in, what was it, in 8 years, from 2010 to 2018, there was a rise of over 2,450 people. In fact, I'm going to see what percentage that rose in 8 years. That's a rise by 2,680%. That is a big old rise of people going to that clinic. 27 times the amount of people who went in 2010 now go in 2018. And we're sure that some ideological push isn't being made by certain lobby groups. Like, come on, get off it. You don't get a rise in children's mental health deteriorating at this rate unless something is being pushed on them. And I even include social media in that. I think the reason that we have so many depressed girls nowadays is because of social media. But you've got kids as young as 3 getting confused about their gender. They don't even fully understand their gender yet. They're still exploring it. So no duh, they're confused about it. No wonder they're going to think they're trans if you're saying, if you play with Barbie dolls, you're a girl. Jesus Christ. In an internal review seen by The Times, the GIDS admitted it needed to improve its referral system and the way it obtained and recorded informed consent before young people were sent for life-changing medical intervention. Really? I felt for the last 2 years what kept me in the job was a sense that there was a huge number of children in danger. I was there to protect children from being damaged, one clinician said. And probably by leaving and doing this interview, you are probably doing more than you have done in the last 2 years, unfortunately, but hell, I believe in redemption. This experimental treatment is being done on not only children, but very vulnerable children, another said. All 5 said they believed that transgender charities, such as Mermaids, were having a harmful effect by allegedly promoting transition as a cure-all solution for confused adolescents. The charities deny the allegation. Well, of course they have. They deny all wrongdoing because they have an ideological agenda that they believe is right to go for by any means necessary. The clinicians said they were often under pressure to refer young people for life-altering treatment, even though they did not always believe it was in the individual's best clinical interests. And you know what? I'm going to trust the doctors over the bankers and HR managers at Mermaids and other trans activists groups. You people are evil. The clinic said it used licensed, precocious puberty drugs whose long-term effects were known and insisted that its service was safe and that in growing evidence internationally on the outcomes, there is little reported evidence of harm. We always place a young person's well-being at the centre of our work, it said. Yes, but when you believe a person's well-being can be easily fixed by mutilating their genitals to try and be as close to the other sexes as possible, while they're 16... while they are still trying to understand gender, while their brains are still developing, and while they do not have the ability to make their own choices, I'm going to take that claim with a rather large grain of salt. The specialists expressed concern that many children decided they wanted to change gender after suffering homophobic bullying. Yet these young people were still referred down the route of hormone treatment, they claimed, without clinicians always exploring the possibility they may simply be gay. One clinician said that she feared the use of hormone therapy for such children could result in a scandal, and you know what? I think you're in the middle of one. I mean, seriously, what type of place would put someone on hormone therapy after they... I mean, I laugh, but it's actually really, really bad. If someone's been, homophobically abused, if someone's been called gay, and then they're referred to this place for therapy, and then they're pressured into putting them on hormone therapy, no wonder you're getting... I mean, I'm surprised the number isn't higher. The amount of homophobic slurs I heard at school, I'm amazed that this place doesn't get 1 million referrals a year. Because every kid in Britain has been called gay at some point in their life when they were a kid. Like, this is amazing. These charities are just reaping what they sow. That is all I am saying. The GIDS denies the claims, saying it offers a safe service that recognises and respects the complexity of its cases. Well, you are putting, kids that could just be gay on hormones, so yeah, I'm not believing you there. Under the clinic's rules, a young person who has already started puberty may be referred for hormone blockers. These are physically reversible insofar as the body will continue to develop if they are discontinued, but the long-term effect on brain development is unknown. So they lied before when they said that long-term effects of hormone blockers, the licensed hormone blockers, is known. So thank you for pointing that out. Irreversible cross-sex hormones can be prescribed from 16. I personally think that should be 18 and completely the choice of the, 18-year-old. Carl Hennigan, Director of Centre of Evidence-Based Medicine at the University of Oxford, said, given paucity of evidence, the off-label use of drugs for outcomes not covered by the medicine's license in gender dysphoria treatment largely means an unregulated live experiment on children. Jesus Christ! The service insisted that its internal review did not identify any immediate issues in relation to patient safety or failings in overall approach taken by the service. Yes, the issue isn't with the immediate effects, the issue is with the long-term effects on putting kids on hormone blockers. Because as we say, we don't know the damn effects on the brain. We don't know. I'd go as far as say we don't know the overall effects. For some reason, they're all saying it's irreversible and perfectly fine, and yet Susie Green's own daughter couldn't grow a penis properly. Like, so much mental gymnastics must go on in Mermaid's hive mind that I don't know where to begin. Honestly, this stuff is just too stupid for me. The GIDS said that time and care was taken at every stage to ensure that individuals grasped the potential consequences of their choices. It said that its staff had no preconceptions as to the appropriate treatment and that discussions around sexuality now form a more explicit part of our approach to assessment and exploration. Addressing concerns over the scarcity of evidence, it added, "It is only in recent years that the number of young people attending specialist services worldwide has dramatically increased. Prior to this, the number has been small, and it has therefore been difficult to collect sufficient evidence to fully evaluate treatment pathways. We and other specialist services worldwide are actively engaged in research to better understand the characteristics and needs of young people attending specialist services." The Department of Health said that the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust is subject to inspections, monitoring and regulation. Well, I'm sure it is. But honestly, I don't know why that long statement saying it's only in recent years that young people are going to trans specialist services so that we can now basically do the research properly. I don't know why they basically don't just say, yeah, we don't have the evidence yet. Oh, wait, I do know why they don't say that. Because in saying that, that basically undermines everything they've said before when they say, yeah, we know it's safe. But right there, that is them admitting, okay, now that the young people are all coming to our specialist services, we can actually do the research. But of course, they're not going to think about that. They're just going to keep trying to push their ideological bullshit. And I don't particularly want ideological bullshit being pushed onto kids. Especially when it can obviously really affect their later stages in life. Well, you know what? At least we can say that it is only one clinic and from a few trans radical charities where all this stuff is being pushed. At least that's what I would say in a perfect world. In reality, families exploited by gender lobby groups pushing for treatment. So, yeah, this goes beyond just one little thing in London. So the article starts off basically reiterating what I went through in the last article, just really short-handed, but then it goes straight into this. Frontline clinicians who assessed the thousands of young people coming to the GIDS for help said they felt families were systematically demanding to be referred for life-changing hormone treatment on the advice of campaigners. Mermaids are always saying that it is a matter of life and death. Would you rather have an alive boy or a dead girl? That Mermaids narrative is everywhere within the service, one former clinician claimed. Mermaids sell themselves as a support group, said another. They are not. They are lobbyists. During sessions, they would sit in the waiting room outside. She accused Mermaids of exploiting parental anxiety to promote their own agenda, claims denied by Mermaids, because Mermaids aren't just going to go, yeah, we exploit parental anxiety. I mean, you know, they're for the little guy, they're for the kids, you know. They're a perfect group, don't worry about it. The GIDS's own internal review acknowledged the rise in number of families presenting with their minds apparently made up. Okay, so when I said before this is going on all over Britain, apparently the story's still about the same place, it's just further investigation. The Times are really going after this clinic, I have to tell you, and good on him, that's what I say. The same clinician said, the reality is that if you say the right trigger words, get Mermaids on your side, by 11 you'll be on hormone blockers, and by 16 you'll be on hormones. That's not ethical. No duh! I've really got to stop laughing because this is actually really sad, but I mean, honestly, the stuff coming from these clinicians is just so obvious to me that I cannot believe that these charities are getting away with it. The GIDS said it was independent and committed to providing an environment where staff were protected from pressures. Mermaids insisted that it does not tell people what to say or do, and provides information and resources only. In its successful submission for a £500,000 grant, Mermaids told the National Lottery that its focus was not medical treatment. Bullshit! We know that you sent people to illegal clinics. Please don't bullshit me. And let's not forget the H-Bomber guy also raised a load of money for them as well, the moron. This claim was dismissed by a third former clinician. Mermaids, Gaia's gender intelligence, they all act as if they were their service, the clinician said. They are able to call up executive members and influence them. Another clinician said that GIDS receives complaints that you can tell were written by mermaids because they are all the same. Yeah, I trust them on that because automated emails, and you can always tell when a letter has an ideological backing behind it, and they usually do come from like ideological organisations because, you know, a parent will write really personally. Unless they've been really indoctrinated, in which case it may as well just be Mermaids writing it anyway, so yeah, I totally actually trust her on that, to be honest. Mermaids admits that it supports families through the complaints process. Susie Green, the CEO, said, a system where complaints are denied or ignored would be highly unethical and goes against basic NHS principles. If Mermaids did not communicate with the clinic, then it would face legitimate criticism. She said the charity does not encourage parents to demand any particular treatment. Honestly, she's a known liar. Jay Stewart, CEO of Gender Intelligence, said the allegations were unfounded. We recognise the medical intervention is not right for all young people, he said. Bernard Reed, founder of Gaia's, said in medical literature, failure to provide timely treatment is described as psychological torture. As far as we are aware, GIDS has adequate safeguards against irreversible treatments being given inappropriately. Yes, but it's called chemical torture if you give children hormone blockers when they, one, don't need them, and two, do it for too long, that it affects their brain and other parts of their physical body. You have to understand that. You think everything's psychological. You think that gender isn't deemed at birth, and that you think... I mean, how do you think that men and women aren't... Like, how do you think that the genitals aren't a big part of being, like, men and women? Like, they actually don't think this. Trans radicals don't think this, and these are the pinnacle of trans rights activists, and they are so anti-science and so anti-medicine, apparently, it is beyond me. But honestly, they're not just going to say, yeah, we, like, pressure these groups, are they? This is just standard stuff they're going to say against it. But honestly, I trust doctors. It's all a part of trust. I trust doctors a lot more than I trust these charities. I think these charities are awful from all the things they say and do. I mean, Susie Green's she is a trans strong woman. It's amazing. I don't know how she gets away with what she does. But here we are, having people trust her for some reason. But whatever. The GIDS said the trust engages with a number of support groups with a wide range of different positions. These groups include Mermaid and Gender Intelligence, but also those with quite opposite views. The trust always seeks to be independent and focus on the needs of individual children. Yes, but if they're being pressured by one side of that, and then have enough of it, they're going to leave. So I think that the people with quite opposite views, of which you don't give it any examples, interestingly, I have to say maybe it's the people who have been pressured to leave. That's all I'm saying on that. I mean, I'm not being funny, but every single prediction I've made about this entire subject has been correct so far, and things just keep being proven right. My predictions just keep being proven right by these helpful articles, so thank you very much. Anyway, I think it's about time we went through a proper source on this, and Professor Carl Hennigan wrote for the Times as part of this investigation, because he is the same man before who was from the University of Oxford for evidence-based medicine, so I think he's got to know his stuff. Doubts over evidence for using drugs on the young, by Professor Carl Hennigan. You would think that when it comes to children, the testing and evaluation of medicines would be robust, ensuring the utmost safety. Well, you'd be wrong. The mess we have gotten ourselves into with treatment of gender dysphoria in children and adolescents highlights all that is concerning with present use and evaluation of powerful medicines in this age group. Most evidence for drug use is based on information in adults, evidence in children is scarce, and the majority of drugs in use are frequently supported by low-quality evidence about their use beyond the usual age for puberty, or in many cases, no evidence at all. Drugs in children, therefore, often require off-label use, meaning their use is outside of what drugs were approved for and detailed in the summary of product characteristics. including the use of a drug to avoid, not just delay, puberty and following it with cross-sex hormone treatment. So this man is going to be talking about the unethical use of hormone treatment in children. As an example, in transgender females, estrogen therapy alone is often insufficient to produce the desired feminizing effects. Oh god, this word. Spironolactone. God, that took about 10 attempts to pronounce. Commonly used in the treatment of heart failures, is used off-label, owning to its estrogen effects. It blocks testosterone, and the estrogen-like effects cause menstrual disturbances, breast enlargement, and breast tenderness in females, and gynecomastia, swelling of the breast tissue in boys or men, and impotence in males, often leading to its discontinuation. Gláeddyv does not use spironolactone, but it has been used to treat adolescents with gender dysphoria in the US. All clinics use different drugs and different doses, and that in itself is concerning. Well, no duh. Children are not small adults. Their changing body composition requires careful dosing. Their psychology creates unique challenges that increases risks, and off-label use may lead to serious and life-threatening consequences. In my view, given the paucity of evidence, their off-label use of drugs that occurs in gender dysphoria largely means an unregulated live experiment on children. And I'm pretty sure we don't want that. So at least we can say that we're not as bad as America. But we're still pretty bad. Treatments for gender dysphoria in children and adolescents include suppressing puberty and the use of gender-affirming hormones before decisions about gender-affirming surgery. The collection and evaluation of evidence, particularly when it comes to ensuring their safety, should therefore be a priority, and it isn't. The available evidence comes from small studies in retrospective rather than prospective, and has lost considerable numbers of children in the follow-up. Studies also lack control groups, making it difficult to tell anything about the intended effects. There are also no randomized trials, and the presence of subjective outcomes, along with the lack of blinding, means altogether the current evidence does not support informed decision-making. The dearth of evidence in gender dysphoria doesn't surprise me. What does surprise me is that we have devolved responsibility for making life-changing decisions to one clinic, to a few doctors, with no national guidelines in place, and that we have accepted that individuals facing distressing life-changing situations are ill-informed. The Department of Health told BBC's Panorama programme that it was committed to ensuring thorough accountability and oversight and will review any arrangements whenever appropriate. Its response is pitiful. Review any arrangements when appropriate? What does that mean? The BBC investigation I participated in highlights the considerable uncertainties that require addressing to inform safe care for gender dysphoria. If in doubt, ask for the evidence. So this guy's just written an article that much more concisely put my last 3 videos into an article. And that is basically that these places are constantly using all these ways to treat gender dysphoria that have no evidence that it is safe, and at the same time are just dismissing any type of dissenting voice towards them because they are on a moral crusade and use weasel words to get out of it, and in some cases, from what it looks like, just outright lie to the public. And that is unacceptable and should absolutely not get any funding from the National Lottery, let alone run as a charity. But at least the clinic has decided to respond to this. Gláeddyv has explained it uses licensed precocious puberty drugs whose long-term effects are known. It said there is growing evidence internationally on the outcome of pubertal suppression and sex hormones in adolescents with gender dysphoria. Thus far, there is little reported evidence of harm. Right, but is there evidence of safety? I mean, you've got to realise that there is chance that in, 10, hell, 20 years, it could come out that these, hormone-blocking drugs and licensed drugs could have detrimental effects on these now adults. Like, you can't say, so far there isn't harm, and expect to keep using them, because eventually it's going to come back and bite you in the ass, because it doesn't mean that they are safe throughout a person's life. I mean, this will detrimentally harm someone. I would be astonished if it doesn't. It added that it responds to emerging evidence in an appropriate and considered way. Well, you need to be a bit more detailed than that, I'm afraid. And is carrying out its own research and uses the preliminary data from this work to inform clinical care. It added that the service is safe and an independent review did not identify any immediate issues in relation to patient safety or failings in the overall approach taken by the service. But if Hennigan is to be believed, there aren't any guidelines to this. How are they reviewing you if there aren't any national guidelines on how to treat people with gender dysphoria when they are adolescents or children? Like, if this could have been done by Mermaids for all I know, although they did say it was an independent review, that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been lobbied by Mermaids as well. Although I suppose it's independent, so that implies that it isn't. But I mean, honestly, this place just seems like it's full of lies. So I really do not trust them, I'm afraid. But I really want to see I really want to see this independent review, but I can't find it, and I've searched for it. I just can't find it. If anyone can find this independent review, please send it to me, and I will make a video on it because I really want to go through this. But one last point I do want to make is that it's become incredibly noticeable to me that dissenters against Mermaids will say we are worried about this child's safety for the future, and they will constantly say, well, the immediate effects are fine. I mean, honestly, look at that GIDS response, and they say, oh, the independent review said all the immediate effects are fine. It's like, right, we're not talking about the immediate effects. We're talking about the effects of when they reach post-pubescent age and haven't gone through puberty properly, and have gone straight on to hormone drugs, and have had no chance to actually, you know, it came out the other day on the Times as well, that scientists have found out that brain development between men and women actually differs when you're in the womb as well. So you are obviously, if you are intended to be born male, then biology has intended your brain to be adapted to a male body, and gender dysphoria is the part that absolutely ruins that. Unfortunately, I do feel bad for those people, and I am friends with people with gender dysphoria who have transitioned, I do want to mention. The thing is, they weren't kids when they transitioned, and I don't think you ever should be a child when you transition. I think when you turn 18, the choice is entirely up to you, but until then, there should be no puberty blockers, and there should be no cross-hormone therapy. Be a child, do what you want, and if your mental health gets bad enough, maybe in extreme cases, maybe puberty blockers are a good idea. I'm not a doctor, but I think generally 2,500 kids should not be on puberty blockers just in the London area or wherever Tavistock Centre is. But again, trans rights activists, I am talking about long-term effects. If these kids do not go through puberty properly, that can really screw up their day-to-day lives when they are in their 20s and 30s. If they turn out just to be gay and haven't fully developed their penis, as Susie Green's own daughter didn't, then as we can see, the effects are clearly there and at least pose a risk. I just want to wait for evidence, and I want all of this stuff put behind me so that we don't have to keep having children gaslighted by charities that shouldn't exist. But that's everything I had on this topic for now, and I really hope it's the last time I have to talk about mermaids. So once again, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.